The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor of the Plaza Ballroom, taking 14 years of marriage with it. My wife, Catherine, stood there in her red Valentino dress, lipstick smeared across her mouth and my boss Richard's collar, holding divorce papers like a trophy, while 300 of Manhattan's legal elite watched in stunned silence. "Ethan," she said, her voice carrying that practiced PR tone she used for damage control, "I think it's time we were honest about what this marriage really is." I stood at the podium where I had just finished presenting the Lawyer of the Year award to Richard, naturally, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, not even surprise. More like the quiet satisfaction of finally having concrete evidence for a case I'd been building in my head for months. "Honest," I repeated, adjusting my tie with deliberate calm. "That's refreshing. Should I bill you for this consultation, or is public humiliation part of your retainer agreement with the firm?" The crowd tittered nervously. Catherine's best friend, Tara, covered her mouth, trying to hide what looked suspiciously like glee. Richard straightened his bow tie and stepped closer to Catherine, his silver hair perfectly styled even after their little makeout session. "Ethan, let's handle this like adults," Richard said, using his courtroom voice, the same voice he'd used to mentor me for the past 8 years, the same voice he'd probably used to sweet-talk my wife into his bed. "Adults," I mused, looking out at the sea of faces. Partners, associates, judges, clients, everyone who mattered in my professional world. "You mean like adults who conduct affairs in conference rooms? Or adults who time their divorce announcements for maximum professional damage?" I wanted to make sure I understood the parameters here. Catherine's composure cracked slightly. "You've been emotionally absent for years, Ethan. Richard understands what I need." "What you need," I said, setting down my water glass with a soft clink that somehow carried in the silent ballroom, "is apparently a man who can advance your career faster than your husband can. Though I have to admire the efficiency. Why climb the corporate ladder when you can just sleep your way to the top floor?" The gasps were audible now. Judge Morrison looked like he was watching a car accident. Mason Whitmore, the firm's founding partner, had gone pale. "That's enough," Richard said, stepping forward. "Catherine deserves better than your sarcasm and neglect." I looked at him. Really looked at him. Richard Blackwell, senior partner, my mentor, the man who taught me everything I knew about corporate law, the man who'd been in my home, eaten dinner with my children, listened to me complain about my marriage problems over expensive whiskey. "You're absolutely right," I said. "Catherine deserves exactly what she's getting." I folded the divorce papers without reading them and slipped them into my jacket pocket. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the explosion, the dramatic scene Catherine had clearly orchestrated. Instead, I smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my voice carrying easily across the ballroom, "I want to thank you all for witnessing this historic moment. Not just the dissolution of my marriage, but what I believe will be remembered as the most expensive kiss in Manhattan legal history." I stepped down from the podium, straightened my cufflinks, and walked toward the exit. As I passed Catherine and Richard, I paused. "Oh, and Richard, you might want to check your partnership agreement, Section 12, Subsection 4. Conflicts of interest can be so costly." The silence followed me all the way till the elevator. My penthouse office overlooked Central Park, 42 floors above the chaos of the city. It was nearly midnight when I finally sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The divorce papers lay beside my keyboard, but I ignored them. I had more pressing matters to attend to. The first call was to my banker. "Jonathan, it's Ethan Grant. I need to make some withdrawals tonight." "Ethan, it's past midnight. Can this wait until—" $120 million, Jonathan, from the Blackwell and Associates investment account. I need it transferred to my personal holdings immediately. A pause. That's the entire fund. Ethan, the firm's operating capital, the partner buyouts, my money, Jonathan. Check the paperwork. I've been the primary investor since the merger 5 years ago. Richard may run the firm, but I own 48% of it. Another pause. Longer this time. This will effectively shut down operations. Not my problem anymore. Ethan, payroll, overhead, the Madison Avenue lease. Not my problem anymore. Execute the transfer. While Jonathan worked his magic, I opened Catherine's credit card accounts, joint accounts, her personal cards, even the corporate card Richard had authorized for her PR work. One by one, I canceled all of them. 14 years of marriage had taught me many things, including the fact that Catherine's spending habits were as predictable as her career ambitions. Next, I pulled up the client database, 47 major corporate accounts representing nearly $200 million in annual billings. I began typing emails. Dear Mr. Patterson, given recent developments regarding the professional conduct of senior partners at Blackwell & Associates, I felt it prudent to inform you that I will be transitioning my practice to independent representation. Should you wish to maintain continuity in your legal counsel, I would be happy to discuss retainer arrangements under new management. Best regards, Ethan Grant. I sent similar messages to 38 clients. The remaining 9 were Richard's personal contacts. Let him keep them. He'd need the income. My phone had been buzzing incessantly since I'd left the plaza. 63 missed calls from Catherine, 41 from Richard, 17 from various partners. I'd ignored them all, but now I scrolled through the voicemails with interest. Catherine message 1, sent 20 minutes after I'd left the plaza. Ethan, we need to talk. This doesn't have to be ugly. Catherine message 12, sent an hour later. You're being childish. Call me back. Catherine message 37, sent 2 hours later. My credit cards aren't working. What did you do? Richard's messages followed a similar trajectory from conciliatory to concerned to increasingly panicked. Richard's final message sent 15 minutes ago. Ethan, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but this firm has obligations. People depend on us. Call me. I deleted all the messages and opened a new browser window. The New York Legal Tribune's tip line was surprisingly easy to find. Anonymous tip. Blackwell & Associates senior partner Richard Blackwell conducting extramarital affair with employee Catherine Grant, wife of fellow partner Ethan Grant. Relationship began approximately 18 months ago, coinciding with Mrs. Grant's promotion to head of public relations. Recommend investigation into potential conflicts of interest, misappropriation of firm's resources, and violation of professional conduct standards. I attached several photos from the firm's Christmas party, Richard and Catherine standing a little too close, her hand on his arm, his eyes lingering on her neckline. Innocent enough individually, damning when viewed as a pattern. The email sent with a soft whoosh. I poured myself 3 fingers of Macallan 25 and settled back in my leather chair. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan glittered like a circuit board. All those lives intersecting and sparking and burning out. Tomorrow, the legal world would wake up to find one of its most prestigious firms in free fall. My phone rang. Catherine again. This time I answered. Hello, darling. How was the rest of the party? Ethan, what have you done? Her voice was tight with panic. My cards, the bank accounts. I've done exactly what any competent attorney would do when faced with an adversarial action. I've protected my assets. This is insane. You can't just... Can't what? Withdraw my own money? Cancel credit cards on accounts I pay for? Exercise my legal rights as a private citizen. Catherine, you spent 14 years married to a lawyer. Surely some of it rubbed off. The firm will collapse without that investment money. Will it? She sounded sharp, angry. How unfortunate. Perhaps Richard should have considered that before he decided to conduct his midlife crisis in conference room B. I could hear her breathing, sharp and angry. You're destroying innocent people's careers over a personal grudge. Innocent people, I repeated, like Tara, who've been covering for your affair for months. Like the associates who've been billing hours to fake client meetings while you and Richard played house. Like the partners who've been looking the other way while their senior partner violated every ethics rule in the book. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You wanted a divorce. Congratulations. You got one. You wanted to humiliate me in public. Mission accomplished. But if you thought I'd just roll over and let you... Catherine appeared 10 minutes later, probably having waited for Richard to clear the crowd. She'd chosen her outfit carefully. A conservative navy suit, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a professional bun. The wronged wife look, designed to generate sympathy. But the reporters weren't buying it. They'd done their research. I finished my coffee and headed toward the subway. I still had appointments to keep. The first stop was Mason Whitmore's private office. Mason, 73 years old, founder of the firm and still one of the most respected attorneys in New York, was also, very conveniently, Richard's biggest internal rival. "Ethan," he said, gesturing toward the leather chair across from his mahogany desk. "I was hoping you'd call." "Mason, I assume you've seen the news." "Hard to miss," he sighed. "The phone hasn't stopped ringing. Clients, reporters, partners, everyone wants to know what the hell is happening." I leaned back, radiating calm. "What's happening is exactly what it looks like. Richard violated his fiduciary duty, compromised the integrity of the firm, and created a hostile work environment through an inappropriate relationship with an employee who also happens to be my wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, which makes his conduct even more outrageous. He didn't just violate ethics, he violated trust." He nodded thoughtfully. "And the investment withdrawal? Dramatic." "Necessary," I replied. "I won't subsidize my own humiliation. If Richard wants to play power games, he can do it on his own dime." "You know the firm can't function without that capital," Mason said quietly. "But it also can't function with Richard in charge. Not after this. Insurance will drop us. Clients will flee. The bar will investigate. His toxicity will tear apart everything you built." I let silence settle before speaking. "There's another option." His eyes sharpened. "I'm listening." "Emergency partnership meeting. A vote of no confidence. Remove Richard from every leadership position. Bring in new management. Clean house and restore credibility. And if that happens, I'll consider reinstating the investment fund." "Consider," he repeated. "I'll need guarantees, updated ethics policies, independent oversight, a complete PR restructuring. Catherine's employment ends immediately." Mason stared out the window for a long moment before turning back to me. "You know, Ethan, I've practiced law for 50 years. I've seen scandals, betrayals, power plays, but I've never seen anyone maneuver quite the way you're doing it." "I'm not maneuvering, Mason. I'm practicing law." For the first time in years, he smiled. "Richard always said you were too soft for the big leagues. Looks like he was wrong." "Richard was wrong about many things," I said. The 2 p.m. partnership meeting was set. I spent the morning making calls, securing alliances, and watching the media frenzy grow. The story had everything: sex, power, betrayal, money, Manhattan catnip. At noon, a text came from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the Plaza Bar. From R. I arrived 15 minutes late, purely for effect. Richard was already there, hunched over a whiskey that clearly wasn't his first. He looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. Hair disheveled, suit wrinkled, posture defeated. "Ethan," he said quickly, standing, extending his hand. I ignored it and sat. "Richard," he began. "This has gone far enough. We're both adults. We can work this out." I signaled for scotch. "What work out?" "Your affair with my wife? The ethics violations? The betrayal of everything I thought our partnership stood for?" "Catherine and it wasn't supposed to happen this way." "Really? What was the plan? Send me a memo first? Add it to the agenda for the next partners meeting?" Richard flinched. "You don't understand," he said. "Your marriage was already over. Catherine was miserable. You were always buried in work. The kids never saw you. I didn't mean to. So you helped yourself to my wife out of charity. How noble." "Damn it, Ethan, I'm apologizing." "No. You're trying to minimize damage, but there's nothing left to salvage." I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward him. 41 clients terminated their agreements this morning. The Bar Association opened a formal investigation, 3 insurance carriers suspended coverage, and in 2 hours, the partnership is going to vote you out of the firm you spent 20 years building. His face drained of color. "You can't." "Partnership agreement." Cut the act, Ethan. We both know this was personal. You hurt him back. But you didn't just hurt him. You scorched the earth around him. Now the legal community sees you as something else. Predator. Someone who can't be trusted. Someone who uses personal information to destroy careers. You sacrifice anything and anyone to get what you wanted. She studied my face, then added quietly, "The word is out. Other firms are warning their people about you. Prosecutors are more careful. Judges are watching. You won your war against Richard, but you lost something else." "And what's that?" I asked. "Your reputation, your friendships, the respect of your peers. People fear you now, and fear is not respect." She turned to leave, then glanced back. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about your marriage. Catherine and Richard were wrong, but what you did, that wasn't justice. That was cruelty with a law degree." 6 months after the partnership vote, I was working late on a Saturday when security called. "Mr. Grant, there are 2 people here, Richard Blackwell and Catherine Grant. No appointment, but they say it's urgent." I almost smiled. "Send them up." 10 minutes later, they arrived, refugees from their former lives. Richard had lost weight, expensive suits replaced by off-the-rack clothing, confidence replaced by desperation. Catherine looked worse, her designer polish gone, hollow-eyed, and exhausted. "Ethan," Richard said, carefully measured, "thank you for seeing us." "I'm curious," I admitted, gesturing to the cares. 6 months of silence, and now you both show up together. This should be interesting." They sat without touching, avoiding each other's gaze. Trouble in paradise. "We want to make a deal," Catherine said bluntly. "We have information, and we're willing to trade it for consideration." "About what?" I asked. Richard leaned forward. "About the real reason Catherine and I got together. About what was happening at the firm before you brought it all down." I poured a glass of water, taking my time. "I'm listening." Catherine explained. A major corporate firm had planned to acquire Blackwell and Associates for $300 million. The deal depended on removing certain partners who were independent, ethical, and resistant to corporate restructuring. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. You were the primary target. Your commitment to client interests, your influence, your resistance to aggressive billing, they saw you as the biggest obstacle. Richard nodded. "The affair wasn't just attraction. It was strategic. Catherine gathered intelligence on your vulnerabilities, personal life, professional relationships. The plan was to manufacture a scandal that would force you out, but something went wrong." Catherine continued. "We actually fell for each other. What started as manipulation became real. We got sloppy. We started believing our own cover story." I set down my water glass slowly. "You're telling me your affair, the betrayal, the public humiliation, it was all part of a corporate conspiracy?" Richard nodded. "It became real, but yes, it started as a way to remove you. The buyout depended on your departure." Catherine and Richard exchanged glances. Now the acquiring firm is circling again. They think the firm is vulnerable after all the chaos you created. They're making another offer, and they want to bring you in as a partner in the new structure. They want to reward me for destroying my own firm. They want to control you, Richard added. Use your reputation and client relationships to legitimize their takeover. I walked to the window, studying the city below. The lights seemed sharper, more focused tonight. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because we need each other," Catherine said. "The acquiring firm used us, manipulated us, turned us into weapons against you. Now they're discarding us. If you join them, Richard and I lose any chance to rebuild our careers. If you don't, they'll find another way to destroy the firm." "So you want me to, what, forgive and forget? Welcome you back?" "No," Richard said. "We want your help to expose them. We have documents, recordings, evidence of the conspiracy. We can prove the affair was orchestrated, the firm targeted, that all of us were manipulated." Catherine added softly, "In exchange, we disappear. No drama, no media attention.
We take the evidence to the Bar Association and leave New York. Start over. Together. They looked broken, defeated. No, Richard whispered. That's over. A relationship built on lies doesn't last. I sat back at my desk, studying them both. 6 months ago, they'd been on top of the world. Now they were begging for my help. You know what's funny? I said finally. I actually believe you. Makes sense. The timing, the sloppiness, the way it all fell apart. A real affair would have been more careful, more sustainable. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a thick file folder. Morrison Klein and Associates, the acquiring firm. I'd been investigating them for 3 months, ever since their first approach about a partnership. Corporate raiders, essentially. They specialize in acquiring prestigious firms, stripping out the valuable assets and discarding the rest. Catherine stared at the folder. You knew? I suspected, I said. From the beginning, your affair was too convenient, too perfectly timed to be natural. So I did what any competent attorney does. I investigated. Phone records, financial transactions, travel schedules, meeting logs. Took a while, but the pattern became clear. Richard's face went pale. If you knew, why didn't you expose them? Why didn't you destroy the firm? I smiled, seeing them both recoil slightly. Because I realized something important. Whether your affair was real or manufactured, love or conspiracy, the result was the same. You betrayed me. You humiliated me. You tried to destroy my career. I stood, moving around the desk, to face them. So I let you finish the job. Let you think you'd won. Let you believe your little plan worked. And then I destroyed you both anyway. But the firm, Catherine started, hesitating. It's fine. In fact, it's better than fine. We rebuilt the client base, restructured operations, established ethical guidelines that make us immune to the corporate takeovers Morrison Klein specializes in. We're stronger now than before your little conspiracy. Richard shook his head. This is insane. You sacrificed your own partners, your own employees. I sat back, calm but cutting. I sacrificed the weak links, partners who turned a blind eye when senior management violated ethics, employees more interested in gossip than professionalism, clients who cared about connections more than competence. What I built from the ashes of your betrayal is better than before, cleaner, stronger, focused, and completely immune to the manipulation you and Morrison Klein tried to pull. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. What about us, our evidence, our testimony? What about it? Morrison Klein will deny everything, I said quietly. Claim your disgruntled former employees are seeking revenge. Without corroborating evidence, which I'm not providing, your word means nothing. You bastard, Richard spat. You used us just like they did. No, I corrected, calm but cutting. They used you to destroy me. I used you to destroy yourselves. There's a difference. I pressed the intercom. Security, escort my guests to the lobby. As they rose, Catherine turned back once more. Was any of it real, Ethan? Our marriage? Our life together? The man I thought I knew? I looked at her, really looked, seeing the beauty, the intelligence, the charm that had drawn me 14 years ago. But in her eyes, there was something hollow, broken beyond repair. It was real, I said quietly, right up until the moment you decided it wasn't. Security arrived, and they left without another word. I watched from my window as they walked in opposite directions, neither looking back. My phone buzzed. Morrison Klein and Associates. James Morrison. Mr. Grant, hoping we could schedule a meeting to discuss our partnership proposal. I looked at the city skyline, lights representing lives, dreams, ambitions. Somewhere, other Richard Blackwells were plotting against other Ethan Grants. Other Catherines were choosing betrayal over loyalty. Other battles awaited. For the first time in months, I was ready for the fight. I walked back to my office, 42 floors above the chaos, and got back to work.